So every single time I use that hip circle, booty band, whatever you want to call it, around my distal femurs or just above the knee. Yesterday I said the knee, but I didn't want to give the wrong impression. It's not around the knee, it's just above the knee. Every time I use that to squat, and I squat with some sort of volume, the following day, 2, maybe even 3, I've got like severe glute DOMs. Now, the band tension is not very high. It's not very high at all. But when you add weight to the bar and you squat with that bit of band tension, it ends up turning it into like this glute annihilation exercise, which I don't think it's because of the band or the weight. It's just because of the brain gets cued to use that muscle more. So it is impossible to squat. Like today, I have such DOMs in my glutes, and I'm so in tune with that muscle that it gives you like exact, precise feedback on what the glutes do when you squat. This is something that I've beaten to death in my mind and probably on videos as well over the years. Or, when you compare knee extension versus hip extension and the role of both and the role of those things in your squat. When your chest falls in a squat, is it because of lack of knee extension or hip extension? I can make cases, very good cases, good explanations for both to occur with the exact same pattern of a stripper squat, good morning squat, chest falling squat. The majority of fitness community will say when you have a stripper squat, when you have that pattern where your hips rise first, it's because your legs are not strong enough and the body shifts all of the responsibility to the posterior chain because it is not strong enough to handle it. That's what the majority of people subscribe to. This is what majority of people say is happening in the squat when you assume that movement pattern. Also, as recently somebody mentioned in one of the comments, and we had a bit of a back and forth, somebody mentioned that he doesn't subscribe to that idea because the opposite he thinks is true. The opposite argument is that when you look at a stripper squat, what is extending, what isn't extending? The legs are extending, so the legs are strong enough because they have done their duty, but the hips haven't extended and the hips haven't done their duty. So the ones that hasn't, the body part that hasn't accomplished the job is the one that is at fault. Whether you subscribe one or to the other, that's up to you and your rationale and your thought process. I've been in both camps, and frankly, I'll be honest, I don't 100% know where I sit anymore. Because, as I said to the fella in the comments, I've had a lot of success hitting my posterior chain, and a lot of that is transferred into my squat really well. I've had periods where I've annihilated my quads and nothing has happened, only worse. Good morning squatting pattern has happened. So, theoretically, one makes sense. Anecdotally, one makes sense. And whatever your thought process is, you apply that thought, give it some time, water it, fertilize it, and see what comes out. Run your experiment. We're all different. We all have different leverages. So the long-legged lifter might have a different experience than a short-legged lifter. If you're a squatty person, the likely scenario is no matter what the hell you do, the more quads you pump into your training, the better you're going to lift. If you're a long-legged lifter like me, the more ass you put into it, the more back you put into it, the better you're going to lift, because that is what your body is going to use. So you can have two people arguing to death these things, and they are utmost convinced that their scenario of events and their explanation is what's going on, because both of them are working with two different sets of tools. So this is where the idea of debate falls to its knees, because both are correct. This is the crazy thing. Both are correct because both are both have evidence for their methodologies. It's just simply you're two different species, completely different. This is where, I watch some videos, I watch some experts, and then I go back and I experiment, and I'm like, well, that shit did not work. And this is where I ended up in this position in the first place, because I followed everything that people said, and I struggled with my results. It was like abusing my intelligence. And I eventually, after a number of those bouts, I went, you know what, stuff this shit. I'm going to run my own experiments and come up with my own conclusions. Because I think most people are talking out of their ass. So then I went on my own, and I was like, cool, this is not rocket science. I'm not dealing with astrophysics here. I'm not dealing with freaking hardcore engineering of very, very complex AI. This is shit that you can see, touch, feel, taste, if you want to freaking taste it. Do it. You have everything you need to do to experiment your shit. And so I did. Putting the bands around my legs when I squat does something to my brain. It makes me engage more muscle in the glutes. And anytime my glutes are on board, my anterior pelvic tilt starts to resolve itself. And then when my pelvis goes into balance, that's when I start to feel really, really strong. So those bands, as wanky as they are, and as feminine they are, and as embarrassing they are, there's something to it. One of the fellas actually yesterday said, he said, I don't think what's happening when you put the bands on or when you squat, I don't think it's external rotation. I think it's abduction that you're experiencing. And that idea as well, I combated over the years. And as a reply to the fella in yesterday's video, in my mind, I mean, I'm not a physio or exercise physiologist. I'd love to hear the true explanation for this. But in my mind, I feel like there is external rotation when you squat, because you have the hip that is fixed and you have feet that are fixed. In order for abduction to occur, one of these need to not be fixed. So if abduction is to occur, the hip obviously is going to be left in the joint, and the foot needs to abduct or move laterally. That's abduction. If both of these two are fixed, like there are in a squat, when you're going down into a squat, the feet are not moving, the hip is not moving, it's just, it's stapled to their positions, but the knees are going out or forcing themselves out, which in my mind is rotation. The opposite is also true when there's internal rotation of the femur, when the knees go in. That is not abduction, that is not adduction, that is internal rotation. So in my mind, if you say abduction is occurring, that means that the opposite is also occurring the other way when you say adduction. And I don't think it's adduction. I think there's rotation because both of these points are fixed. That's my point, but that's a bit of nerdy stuff, anatomy. So yeah, I think the external rotate is what's sore on me. That's the bit of the glute which does external rotation, because that's what the band offers to this. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I like to read about anatomy and look at the anatomy charts and insertion points and origin points and all that stuff. But, I don't have formal education on physiotherapy. It's just what I've learned through nursing and, in my way of training here. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. Is it external rotation that's happening in the squat of the femur, or is it in fact abduction? Interesting stuff. Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.